Hey guys, Brian here, and today I just wanted to talk about my top 5 favorite games of all time. Now, this is never a list that I sat down and wrote down, and it was kind of tough to do. But with that being said, we're just going to roll right with it and start with number 5, which is Resident Evil 4. Now, the reason I chose 4 instead of 1 to 3 is because it was probably the one I replayed the most. The first one that had just the right amount of action and stealth, or horror rather. And it was just a game that came out at the right time that I got really addicted to, and it's still lots of fun even to go back to today. And it still graphically holds up in my opinion. But with that being said, I'll go on to number 4, which is BioShock the original. Now, the original BioShock, I think what makes it special for me is it was the first story-driven first-person shooter that I actually paid attention to and actually cared about the story. And the world of Rapture is a really awesome world to explore, and there's many creepy things around many corners. It's just a really well thought out story, and I had so much fun with it. Now, number 3, I had to pick in between many Tim Schafer games, and I finally landed on Psychonauts. Grim Fandango almost took this spot, but Psychonauts to me was overall just a really, really fun game. The platforming, the story with Raz, the open world to it. It wasn't a giant world, it was the camp and then the psychiatric ward. But still a very fun world to explore. All of the levels, including the Milkman conspiracy level, were very well thought out, and each level is kind of designed to make you go back and get all the collectibles. It was just, all in all, a really fun game, and Tim Schafer just needs to hurry up and wisen up and make a sequel, because that's what I'm really waiting for. Number 2 and number 1 were probably the hardest choices that I had to put on this list. But I ultimately put my number 2 as Metal Gear Solid for the PS1. Now, its remake, Twin Snakes, is a very beautiful looking game, but it kind of broke what made Metal Gear Solid to begin with. It was a very easier version of Metal Gear Solid in the fact that the technology allowed it to be easier, because they put in first-person view from Metal Gear Solid 2, hanging, and other stuff that just made it a little too easy, in my opinion. So the PS1 version is over the remake for the GameCube, and the reason I like Metal Gear Solid 1, and it is my favorite Metal Gear Solid, even to this day, is that it was the game that more than likely got me into gaming. It was the first game that grabbed my attention, and I just couldn't stop playing it. I just remember as a kid going home and replaying Metal Gear Solid over and over and over again. Back in the day, I probably could have recited every single line of the game. That's how many times I played that game. And I was just so entrenched with the story of Metal Gear, and still am, with all of the entries, but Metal Gear Solid 1 was the game that really made me think seriously about gaming more and more. And it got me to the point where I'm at today with video games. And number 1 ultimately came out to be The Last of Us. Now, Metal Gear Solid holds a very near and dear place in my heart, but The Last of Us ultimately took the number 1 spot for me, just because when it comes to story, this is the first game that I think about when I think about the best video game story. And video game story is very important to me, and it wasn't just the story that I loved about it. The world of The Last of Us is a completely different character of its own. The controls were perfect for the game. Just the right amount of dreadful parts of the game, as well as fast-paced action. This game never hits it never hits a speed bump in which that it just keeps going and going and getting better and better all the way up until the end. And it was just the first game in a long time where I sat the controller down after finishing it, and I was like, how am I going to go from this game to any other game? It was nearly impossible. I don't think I played another game for like 2 weeks, just because I was dumbfounded by like where it could go from there. I still see it as the best game of all time, and it is also my favorite game of all time, until probably Metal Gear Solid 5 The Phantom Pain comes out. Then I'll probably be adjusting the list, maybe not making another video like this, but it may change my opinions if it's as amazing as everybody is saying it is. And with that, I wanted to roll on with some of the honorable mentions. The first one was Valiant Hearts, The Great War, and other than that, Child of Light, which both of those run on the same engine, and both of those games for nearly the same reason. Valiant Hearts is a very emotional game, very story-driven, and I also appreciate that it is very historical in its story, that it's based on World War I, and you can find articles and read them. Very awesome game. Child of Light, also very emotional. Nothing historical about it, obviously, but the story and the world is so beautiful, and seeing Aurora grow up and save these people was just an awesome experience altogether. X-Men for the Sega Genesis is another one I wanted to give a shout out to. It was a game that I played when I was around 6 or 7 years old. I'd always play Wolverine. It was around the same time I was watching the cartoon, so it was just a fun X-Men game. And there hasn't been too many fun X-Men games. I mean, there was Apocalypse, and the one before it that escapes my mind right now, which were both really good games as well. But there's not too many good X-Men games, and that one was the first one that I saw as a really good X-Men game. The next one, Final Fantasy X. Final Fantasy X, the reason I chose 10 over 7 is quite simple, and the fact that it just brought Final Fantasy into the more modern age in respects to graphics, in respects to having voice acting, and I really loved the story of Final Fantasy X up until probably the end, honestly, but it is a game that I remember playing over and over and over again, and it's just honestly a really good Final Fantasy game. And then I wanted the last honorable mention goes out to Siphon Filter on the PS1. I just remember being a little kid, and the first time that I caught somebody on fire with my taser, I thought that was so awesome. The actual gameplay was really fun too, but just remember memories of running around and catching poor guys on fire with the taser. I mean, they were bad guys, so I guess don't feel too bad about that, but it was, you know, it was a fun game for its time, and I really liked it as a kid, and that's why I had to throw it up as an honorable mention. And with that, I wanted to talk about the future of this channel. There's going to be something that I'm going to be doing in August. It's going to be the month of Metal Gear. It'll start sometime around the beginning of August, maybe the end of July, and run all the way up until Metal Gear Solid 5 The Phantom Pain comes out on September 1st. I'll be playing everything in between Metal Gear Solid 1 to Ground Zeroes and everything in between. And I'm not sure if I'll be able to do every game to completion. It might be like a few hours of each game. Some of them I might be able to be... Metal Gear Solid 1 isn't a long game. I'll probably play through the whole game on that. 2 isn't too long. I'm not sure if I'll be able to, complete that game or not within the amount of time I have trying to play through all of these. 4 is not that long either, but I wanted to, and then of course Ground Zeroes isn't long at all. But I wanted to do this as just an anticipation for Metal Gear Solid 5. I was going to do this either way if I didn't have a YouTube channel at this time, but now that I have a YouTube channel, I think it'd be kind of fun for you guys to watch some gameplay and to see if I want to do more gameplay videos in the future while still doing these videos as well. I have some other ideas for this channel as well. I don't want to give those away quite yet, but this channel is going to grow and get bigger, and hopefully you'll stick around and see what it becomes. But anyways, that's my time. I hope you enjoyed this video. Follow me on Twitter. I'm at Brian Poteet. If you like this video, like it, share it with your friends, subscribe to the show, and if you will, give me suggestions on what I should even call this show, because for right now I've only called it the show, and maybe it deserves a better name than just calling it the show or just having a random title up there. I'd rather have this show have a name. I have a few ideas, but they might not sound too great. So if you have an idea for a name for the show, put that down in the comments below. Other than that, have a great day.